Welcome to the New Money Habits Podcast, where we talk about how to create a better plan for your money so you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. Here are your hosts, Sarah Jones and Nino Villa.
Welcome back, budgeteers. Coach Nino Villa here alongside me, my partner on the airways, as always, Sarah Jones. And we're checking in to see where in the U.S. is Sarah Jones today.
Well, hello, Nino. Hello, everyone. Today, I am in Columbia, South Carolina.
Very cool. There's definitely a different background. Anybody who is listening to the podcast who don't watch us on YouTube, you won't notice that Sarah's background has changed. It's very South Carolinian. If that's a thing.
If that's a word. It is. And actually, I am at the library today in, I think, a kid's room where they do some kids programs and everything. And I thought this was kind of a fun background to have. And it actually, it says take you places. And I thought that was interesting, right? Considering being a full-time RVer, that I am definitely going places. So, and we hope to take you places on this podcast too, right?
Yeah, on your financial journey to, just better money habits and taking control of your finances and all those sorts of things. So it's definitely, we're taking you places. We're on a journey here, folks.
We are.
Thanks for tuning in. Well, thank you for letting us know where you're hanging out. Today's episode, I just kind of want to frame things up a moment. We're in kind of like this three-part series where we were talking about the 3 keys to a better plan, which was kind of a continuation from a couple of episodes where we talked about the keys to better money management. And one of the things we said is you got to have a plan. Okay, that's great. So what makes a good plan? What makes a bad plan? So the last couple of episodes, we've talked about a couple of keys to a better plan. The first one being manage your money according to your pay periods. Everybody talks about a monthly budget, but we think it's really important that you're actually budgeting according to when the money's coming in and the different expenses you have in between those pay periods. So if you're paid biweekly, every 14 days. The second key we talked about was prioritizing your goals and expenses. And so we believe that having a plan that is customized to you and your goals is important. And so we're basing it off of pay periods. We're prioritizing those goals. And if you missed any of that, I would encourage you to go back to the last couple of episodes to catch up on those things. But today we want to talk about the third and final key to a better plan, and that is kicking debt to the curb in phases. In phases.
Interesting concept. I thought we were supposed to just do it all at once.
Well, just like let's just list it smallest to largest and pay the smallest one off first and move on to the next one, or heck, maybe we'll list them from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, and we'll just pay them off in that order. There are so many methods out there as to which way is the best way to eliminate your debt. Is it the debt snowball? Is it the debt avalanche? Heck, is it this new fandangled cash flow index, which is out there? And while I don't want to necessarily dive into any one of those strategies today, we'll hold that off for another day. What I do want to suggest is whichever one you choose, whichever one you think is best for you, I want to talk about the different phases that you should pay off debt inside that strategy. So for today's conversation, maybe we'll reference the debt snowball just because it's incredibly popular and common, but that doesn't mean we're saying that the debt snowball is the best strategy. We just want to be able to provide examples of how to pay your debt off in phases within that strategy.
I love that. And I think that kind of what I'm hearing from you too, Nino, is that it comes back to having a plan for how you want to pay off the debt, right? So we talk about plans in a lot of different areas. And I have found that people get kind of stopped before they get started, so to speak, because they don't have a plan. They don't really know how to do it. And we're bombarded with all of this information out there. And so I would just like to encourage everybody and to remind everybody that your debt payoff doesn't have to be crazy difficult. It doesn't have to bring you a lot of stress. That if you put together a plan, a strategy, and look at the different ways that you can pay off debt and what feels good, you can build it into your budget and still live life, still reach some of those goals that you've been reaching for, still live life. And you can break it down in a way that feels right for you. I just want to point that out, that I think sometimes it just feels very overwhelming, right? Like, I've got all of this debt. How am I going to do it? Or it's going to take me 30 years to pay my debt off. Now what? No vacations for 30 years.
Yeah. And that reminds me that in our last episode, when we were talking about prioritizing your expenses, we even kind of talked to some degree about debt. And we talked about, for me and my family, I prioritize things like a family trip back east to visit family at the holidays. And we don't do that every year, but I prioritize something like that over being out of debt 3 or 6 months sooner. So debt has its place in the priorities, but you get to choose how big of a priority is debt elimination. And so while I would encourage everybody to make it somewhat of a priority, I think to your point, Sarah, it doesn't have to be so rigid, so overwhelming, so you're never going to see the inside of a restaurant until you're out of it, and you're never going on family vacation again until you're out of it. I think we have found ways to encourage people to make huge strides. I mean, I have client after client after client who, on average, it takes 18 months to eliminate all of the debt. But maybe we do it in spurts. Maybe we do it in phases. And that's how we get through that. And we celebrate. During that journey with things like, now you get to take the family out to a nice dinner, or you get to, not that you get to, but you're celebrating big financial wins the way that you want to.
I love that. And I'll even throw in too that, when we celebrate clients, we're focused on kind of one area at a time, one debt at a time when I'm working with clients. And so when that debt is taken care of, we do celebrate that. And I don't want to get into this because I think it can be a whole other episode on celebrations but it's important to celebrate whatever that may look like, but celebrate it and really look at how far you've come. Because, I think, and this might be going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I don't want to necessarily, but I think it's important for people when we're talking about debt payoff in phases that you need to celebrate all of these accomplishments, because if you're not celebrating, then it feels like drudgery. It doesn't feel, because you're okay, on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one, right? So I want people to take some time and celebrate every step, every accomplishment, every debt that you've paid off, all of it, because that's important. So I don't want to go down that huge rabbit hole, but I just want to put that reminder out there that however you choose to pay off debt in your phases, one at a time, and celebrate each and every one that you get taken care of.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that and support the idea of celebrating along the way. You're hard at work and you accomplished a goal, celebrate it. So let's transition and let's talk a little bit about these phases. I want to provide like a little bit of backstory here. Like, where did this even come from? So I remember I started financial coaching clients back in 2013, and one of my very first couples, we sat down and we started putting everything on paper. And that actually reminds me of, like, quick side note. We as humans often drum things up in our head far worse than they actually are. And so one of the first steps of eliminating debt anyway is just putting it all down on paper. And again, whether you list it smallest to largest, whether you list it from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, doesn't matter the order in which you list it all out, but let's get it down on paper. And so I was doing that with this couple, and I started to realize that they had some different types of debt. And I don't just mean they had credit card debt and they had student loan debt and they had medical bills. I do mean that, but what I started to realize is, whoa, hold on. They have some active consumer debt, credit cards, their car loan, their student loans, things that they're actively making payments on already, that those accounts are in good standing. And so there was that sort of thing. Then I noticed that they had recently had a child, and so they had some medical debt, just from the recent birth of a child and the hospital visit and some of the stuff that their insurance didn't cover. And so they had this debt. I guess the hospitals were maybe actively collecting on it, but medical debt is just different. It doesn't accrue interest like a credit card. It doesn't have an interest. It doesn't have an established fixed interest rate like a car loan. So it was a different type of debt. And then lastly, they had what I call the let sleeping dogs lie debt. Any back owed, charged off, it's a collections account that's already on your credit report, and whether somebody's calling you to try to get you to pay it or not, it's old, and there's a statute of limitations to it, and so I put that on the back burner, and I say, hey, let sleeping dogs lie. So as I was coaching them and realizing they had some debt to eliminate, but they also had other financial goals, like they wanted to save for a down payment on a house, I started to advise them that their best bet would be to separate these different types of debt into different categories, and that they would focus on each one in a different phase. So phase one became the active consumer debt, credit cards, car loan, student loans. And actually with them, it was like a 1A and a 1B, because 1B became the student loans. It was, let's focus on all this other active consumer debt first, and then we'll do the student loans. But then the second category became the medical bills. And finally, that third category, that third phase was, we'll address the charge-offs after we've gotten through these other two phases. So that's kind of the backstory of where this all originated.
And that's interesting. And, I definitely agree with, the things that are in collections or, charged off that maybe nobody's contacting you. I really suggest most of the time when I'm working with people and have those kinds of debts, like you said, kind of push them back, right? We will deal with those should it come to be more of a present issue. But for right now, let's focus on the things that are really affecting your day-to-day budget, your livelihood, right? Your emotions, your mental state. Let's focus on those first before we worry about the ones that are in collections. And I've been sent to collections, so I know that wears on you, but I think it's a different type of wearing on you emotionally. So let's work on your active debt, as you call it, right? Let's work on that first and deal with the other ones. And I've noticed with clients, they are trying to do too many things at once. And I think that's where it becomes very overwhelming, like I mentioned before, right? What do I work on? Mm-hmm. So push those ones, collections are charged off. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Push those to the back. And let's focus on the other areas first.
Yeah, too often what I find is, somebody might have like a charge off account for $200 and they have a balance on a credit card of $250. And if they just list all of their debt, smallest to largest, well, then that method would tell you to pay off the $200 charged account right away, and then you would focus on the $250 credit card. But the other difference there is there's no minimum monthly payment affecting your month-to-month cash flow on the charge-off. But there is a minimum monthly payment on the credit card that is affecting your monthly budget and your monthly cash flow. So there really is a difference between debts, and again, why I strongly recommend people start to focus in on those different types of debts in different phases.
Well, and that's an excellent point to make. And, another thing I think people look at, well, it's on my credit report, right? It's lowering. I've got these, accounts and collections, and it's lowering my credit. And I oftentimes remind people that while that is true, also paying your active debt on time and getting those debts taken care of can help that credit score as well, right? So you don't get confused on just taking care of the ones that are in collections, because you can also help your credit score by working on the active debt, making those, keeping current on all of your payments there also.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and we did an episode in the past about like what makes up a credit score. And so obviously your ability to pay on time is a big one. And so if you have charge-offs, but you also have active, like it's a kind of a mixed bag, right? So that portion of your credit score is being affected both positively with the active stuff that you're paying on time and negatively by the charge-off. But another element of your credit report is your credit